Ethan Price never imagined he'd say "I do" in a rundown courthouse wearing borrowed shoes. But when you've been scraping by as a single dad, sometimes life hands you miracles in unexpected places and in unexpected people. He met Clara in line at the local food pantry. She had a quiet voice, faded jeans, and a little boy named Micah clinging to her leg like his life depended on it. Small-town gossip called her the outcast. People whispered about her family, how they'd left her with nothing but debts and a broken-down gas station no one wanted. Ethan saw something else. He saw how she tucked Micah's hair behind his ear when he got shy, how she packed an extra sandwich to share with strangers in the pantry line. He saw her kindness, her grit, and how much his daughter Lila giggled whenever Clara was around. When Clara told him she'd inherited a junk gas station outside of town, she said it like an apology, but Ethan only smiled. He'd fixed worse things in his life. They didn't have rings. They didn't have a honeymoon. They had kids to feed, old debts to chase, and a rusty neon sign that flickered above their heads at Price & Sons Gas. Except the neon suns never lit up. At first, the station barely made enough to cover the electric bill. Clara brewed weak coffee, Ethan pumped gas for the rare passing trucker, and Lila and Micah chased each other around the cracked parking lot with chalk-stained jeans. Most nights, they counted coins on the dinner table just to see if they'd eat eggs or ramen tomorrow. But they were together. Two kids, two broken grown-ups who'd stitched their tiny, hopeful family from scraps. One rainy afternoon, a battered pickup rolled up to the station. A man stepped out in a suit too nice for a gas stop. He asked to see the old storage shed out back. Ethan laughed. The shed? It was where they kept busted tires and half-empty paint cans. But the man insisted, so Ethan led him through the weeds. The man stepped inside, phone flashlight sweeping across rotting shelves, until he stopped at a loose wooden panel near the floor. The man knelt, pried it up, and revealed something Ethan and Clara never expected, a hidden metal hatch. Beneath it, a tiny staircase led down into darkness. Ethan's heart thudded in his ears. Clara's hand squeezed his so tight it hurt. The man turned, breathless. "Did you know?" Ethan shook his head. "Know what?" The man looked at them like they'd struck oil. "This land sits on a decommissioned natural gas reserve, worth upwards of $200 million. Clara staggered back, covering her mouth. Ethan caught her before she fell. The man handed them a business card. "You two just inherited the jackpot. If you want, we can help you sell or drill. Either way, you're not broke anymore." That night, they didn't count coins at the dinner table. They sat under the flickering sign with Micah and Lila squeezed between them, eating takeout pizza off paper plates. Clara rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "I was so scared, you know. You married me for nothing." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "I married you for everything." She laughed, tears streaking her cheeks. "I never wanted money, Ethan." "Me neither," he whispered. "Turns out we were sitting on treasure the whole time." A year later, the neon suns finally glowed bright. The old shed was gone. In its place stood a modern cafe where tired truckers stopped for the best pies in 3 counties. Micah and Lila had new bikes, new shoes, new dreams. And Ethan and Clara never once forgot that it wasn't the millions under the ground that saved them. It was the love they dug up when they had nothing. Because sometimes the best things in life aren't hidden in the ground. They're right beside you, at a cracked Formica table, counting pennies and believing tomorrow will be better. And if you're lucky, it always is. Months passed, and the old gas station transformed more than anyone in their dusty little town could believe. Where there was once a rusty sign, now gleamed Price and Family Fuel and Cafe, with fresh paint, bright lights, and laughter that spilled out onto the lot every evening. Ethan still pumped gas sometimes, even though they could have hired 3 people to do it. Clara still brewed coffee, but now it was strong, rich, and served with fresh pies she baked in the mornings while Micah did homework at the counter. It wasn't about the money. It was about what the place meant now, a second chance, not just for them, but for every trucker, farm worker and neighbor who pulled in for fuel and stayed for a warm meal and kinder words than they'd heard all day. One chilly December evening, Ethan closed up the cafe late. The neon sign cast a soft blue glow on the wet pavement as Clara came out behind him, wiping her flour-dusted hands on her apron. "Full house today," she said, tucking her arm through his. He smiled at the lights inside, where Micah and Lila giggled behind the counter, decorating a tiny Christmas tree with mismatched ornaments. "Remember our first night here?" Clara asked. He laughed. "Barely. I was counting quarters to buy gas for the generator." She tilted her head up, teasing him. "Still glad you married me for my rundown gas station." Ethan leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers. "Best broken thing I ever found." Inside, Micah called out, "Dad! Mom! Look!" He held up an ornament, a tiny, cheap metal star Clara's grandmother once hung every Christmas, now polished and gleaming under the cafe lights. Lila ran over and tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy, what's the best thing we ever found here?" He glanced at Clara, at their kids, at the warm light and the hum of the coffee machine still on behind them. Then he knelt down to Lila's height. "You," he said simply, tapping her nose, "and your brother and your mom, this place gave us each other." Outside, trucks rumbled down the dark highway, their headlights flashing by. But inside that tiny cafe, under the old neon sign that finally stayed lit all night, there was enough light and love to outshine any secret fortune buried in the ground. Money changed their address, their debt, and their gas pumps, but it never changed the simple truth: when you have good people to stand by, you're already rich. Later that night, Ethan slipped a new wooden sign beside the door. It read, "Open all night, kindness served here." And under the quiet stars, that little gas station, once broken, once forgotten, glowed brighter than ever, proving to every passing stranger that sometimes the greatest treasures are the hearts brave enough to love without knowing what's hidden underneath.